AM 630. WMAL.
8:37 on WMAL. Brian Neiman, Brian Wilson with you. Bill Kristol's on the line, editor of the Weekly Standard. Always great to have you, Bill. Thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Hey, good to be with you, Brian. How are you?
Well, we're doing pretty well. I know that obviously domestic issues, the economy, are going to play a huge role in this election, the most important thing. But I do want to ask you a foreign policy question.
Sure.
You're known as a hawk. What do you think the president should be doing in Syria? I know John McCain has been out there saying that more needs to be done. Assad's a bad guy. He's butchering his people. We need to help out the Syrian people in some way. What exactly should we be doing? What is the Obama administration doing wrong, in your opinion, on this?
I think we do need to be doing more to help the Syrian people, and we're letting it just escalate into a civil war. We're letting the Russians supply arms to Assad, apparently. We've said Assad must go. It's one thing if we had said we're just staying out of it. It's a disaster. It's terrible that people are getting killed, but we can't do anything. But that's not the administration's position. The administration's position is Assad has to go. It's unacceptable what he's doing. It's unacceptable what the Russians are doing. And then we don't do anything. And I think that makes us look weak. It emboldens our enemies. It sends a terrible signal to Iran, Syria's big ally, that when we talk tough, we don't necessarily mean it.
Well, but what should we do? I mean, do we arm the rebels?
Arm the rebels and force a safe zone that allows them to organize themselves, somewhat like what we did in Libya. I don't think it's that complicated.
Although there are reports out there that it's just like in Libya, we don't really know who these rebels are. There's some people who say there's a lot of Al-Qaeda that could be there. There could be Muslim Brotherhood people there. And what exactly happens to those weapons, and how do you get them to them?
I think that's all fair. We think we know who some of the rebels are, and myself have met a few of their outside supporters here in Washington, and Syrians who've left the country, and Syrians have been in touch with those Syrians. Look, I think the longer we let it go without our participation, the more likely it is that it can be taken over by the Muslim Brotherhood or by Al-Qaeda-related extremists. If we're in there helping, guys whom we think are better, it's not easy. It's not going to turn out perfect, I'm sure. But I think in this case, the strategic advantages of getting rid of Assad are so great that any doubts we have about what might replace him should really come to second place. It would be a huge blow to Iran to lose its big ally, Assad. So this isn't just a case, unlike Libya, where it was really more of a, Gaddafi's a horrible dictator, let's just help get rid of him. This really is a case where a strategic interest in the Middle East, and I always come back to Iran, that is the huge prize, and anything that weakens Iran, we should be doing our best to do, I think.
All right, let's talk about presidential politics and the state of play of the race right now. People who do what you do and what I do, we study these polls endlessly, and, we understand that polls are a snapshot, but sometimes you can take a look at a lot of different poll data, and you start to see a trend. And I don't know, I'm beginning to detect a trend that's, I would say, favorable for Mitt Romney right now. Still some heavy lifting to do in the electoral math, but I see some little things happening. What do you see when you look at the numbers?
Well, I think if you just step back and really do try to look at the numbers just kind of analytically, Brian, I agree with you. Over the last couple of months, since Romney has secured the Republican nomination and voters have had a chance to begin to focus on the choice, there's just no question that if you look at the Real Clear Politics average, or if you look at Rasmussen or any of the other polls that give you a way to compare snapshots over time, so in a sense you are getting a trend, that Romney has basically caught up to President Obama. It looks like a dead-even race right now, when he was behind 2 or 3 points before. From one point of view, you could say Romney's in a very strong position. For a challenger to be even with an incumbent is very good. President Obama's around 46%. Most of these undecided voters presumably will break against the incumbent. That's normally the way incumbent re-elections work.
Right.
If you're not already for the incumbent, you're going to go against them. On the other hand, if you're a Romney supporter, and I am, and you want to be worry, which we all want to do, right?
Well, we do.
You think, Romney's had a good month or two. Obama's had a miserable last 2 or 3 weeks. Shouldn't Romney be actually ahead by a few points?
No.
There's the stickiness, I would say, resistance to Romney. And I think that has something to do with Romney not yet laying out a big, bold agenda. I do think if you're a little sour on Obama, if you're a swing voter here in Northern Virginia, you sort of know Obama's not quite up to it. His policies haven't worked too well. Then you turn around and you look at Mitt Romney, and you say, well, okay, so what's the alternatives? Who's like a sound guy, a smart guy, a business success, but what's his agenda? I think Romney needs to do more now to make the affirmative case for himself. If I had one criticism of the Romney campaign, is that they're too focused on Barack Obama and not focused enough on Mitt Romney, actually.
Well, really? So you don't think you should just play it safe and have the election be a referendum on Obama?
No, that is what a lot of them think, and it's what a lot of people think, and maybe that'll turn out to be fine. Honestly, if unemployment gets worse, if things fall apart everywhere, if we do nothing about Iran and things get worse there, it could certainly, you could win just on a pure negative referendum on Barack Obama. But it strikes me as, tricky to count on that. And this is the presidency. This isn't just like replacing a senator where you're unhappy with the guy in there, so you kick him out. You're putting someone else in to run the country, to be commander-in-chief. So I would be in favor of a somewhat bolder, somewhat more substantive, forward-looking campaign by Governor Romney. He's got most of the policies. I mean, it's not like he's worked on these things and his staff has them worked out. But he hasn't really gone out and laid them out. And I'd be a little bolder, a little more in the spirit of Scott Walker in Wisconsin, Mitch Daniels in Indiana, the governors who've been successful, McDonnell here, and say, I'm going to be a reform president the way these guys have been successful reform governors in domestic policy, and in foreign policy I'm going to be a responsible, sober, but tough-minded commander-in-chief.
All right, so the other thing that we want to talk about when it comes to presidential politics right now is who Mitt Romney might choose as his running mate, because that might make a difference to some people. Might be just enough to sort of change the math on this thing. Who do you like?
I mean, I like the younger, bolder picks, which I would say are Paul Ryan or Marco Rubio or Chris Christie, or Mitch Daniels, who's not young but who's been a terrific governor of Indiana. I think that would signal kind of a reforming zeal and intensity and agenda, really. The safer picks are probably someone like Rob Portman of Ohio or Tim Pawlenty, the former governor of Minnesota. That may be the way he goes, and I wouldn't object to it much. Bobby Jindal, I'd say, incidentally, of Louisiana would also be a bolder pick. I just think he should. Here's my sort of simple view. I mean, Romney, I think, is an impressive guy, but I think it's more impressive if he puts himself at the lead of a large number of Republican and conservative reformers, all of whom have shown the ability to win over Democrats and independents, all of whom have governed successfully. And so whether it's McDonnell or Jindal or Walker or Daniels or Christie or Paul Ryan in the House or Rubio or Kelly Ayotte in the Senate, these are all people who won, most of them in swing states. They've done well. The public approves of what they've done. They've been bold. I think it would help Romney to associate himself with them and make it and say truthfully that he's going to do at the national level what a lot of these people have succeeded in doing at the state level, or in the case of the congressmen and senators, have tried to do at least in Washington.
Bill Kristol, always a pleasure to have you. Please come again.
Thanks, Bill.
Good talking to you.